Hi, it's Stephanie with This Reader's Life, Books and Other Blessings, and I am so glad that you stopped by. If this is the first time you've ever been here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back, of course. And please feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy what you're seeing. And today is, it's past the middle of March. It came and went all the day, all the months seem to be moving along plenty fast. And today it's an interesting day here in Kansas. It's going to be 85 degrees, which is very, very unusual for this time of year, and very welcome if you really want to know, because I've had enough of winter. I always feel that way when spring rolls around. And this morning we had a little excitement. I have my back porch is enclosed, and all of a sudden the dog went crazy. And I looked out there, and there was a little bird. I don't think it was a baby bird, but it was not a super adult bird, if that makes any sense. But anyway, it was banging itself up against the windows. There's windows on three sides of the porch, and it was just beating itself to death. It happens every now and then. And this bird, this is not a sad story. This bird survived. But so I do what I usually do, and I call off the dog and go out onto the porch, and I just open the door and open it up. And this poor little bird, he had gotten himself, or she had gotten herself into a corner back behind a couple of things. And so I got the broom and I fished her out, and I was able to just reach down and pick her up. And I set her outside first on the little porch on the steps before it goes down to the yard. But she looked like her leg might be broken. So I went and got a little box, and I picked her up again, which she didn't fight me on at all. She was obviously terrified. And got a little box and set her in the box, and put her down on the back porch step that goes down to the yard. And I checked on her after a few minutes, and she looked better, but she was still sitting there. And so I took a quick picture of her, which I will show here in just a minute. And it was right after I took that picture that she took off, and I saw her fly off into one of the pine trees near the back of our property. So she was fine, and the dog survived, I survived, the bird survived. So it was a good story. Anyway, today, that is completely off what I want to talk about today. It is March. It's the middle of March, and one of the events that take place in March is Middle Grade March, which I was looking really forward to doing, and I decided I would just I would use the 5 prompts to find at least 5 books that I either remembered from my childhood, or from my kids' childhood, or from my grandson. And as it turned out, I think everything that I picked is actually from no later than 1988, but most of them are from the 60s. So they're books that I remember from the 60s. And that being said, of course, there is, I want to read something as a caveat, because some books, it's not that the theme doesn't age well, but sometimes the language doesn't age well, or and I don't know if age well is even the right thing to say. They become, and I don't like the word politically correct. I think it's not about politics, but however, sometimes the words are offensive or objectionable, and they are insulting to a certain group of people or things like that. And I'm relatively unoffendable. But I'm not a child. So I did a little bit of research, and I did find a book that I thought was very interesting. I did not read the entire book, but I do have a tiny excerpt from it that I'm going to read to just keep in mind as you are, or what I keep in mind when I'm thinking about books from my own childhood. Very, very interesting. Was titled Steeped in Stories, Timeless Children's Novels to Refresh Our Tired Souls. And it was written by Matali Perkins, and I believe that she is from someplace in India, but however, she immigrated here as a child and lived in Flushing, which I believe is in New York. And one of the things that when she arrived here with her family, they didn't have a lot of money, but her older sister introduced her to the library and told her, you can check out 7 books at a time, and when you take them back, you can check out 7 more. So she read voraciously and got so much education through reading. And here is what she says about how we can read and enjoy classic books which have flaws. And the quote is, "The fact that all stories are imperfect means we must equip young people to read critically. In the midst of the fiery debate, I propose adults who are committed to educating this generation, parents, grandparents, teachers, librarians, writers, and others, find common ground by agreeing on one key premise. Crossing as many borders as possible in childhood, which includes engaging with a wide range of people and stories, is vital in developing discernment." And I thought that makes so much sense, and that also as parents, know what your children are reading and know when to intervene and give some direction or some correction. If you can't do that, then you're dependent upon schools and others, and in some cases luck, and in some cases a child's discernment, because they do discern, they do have a sense of right and wrong. I do believe that. And then there was one other quote that I saw, and I think it's from the same author, and it was, "Eradicating the record of a cruel past doesn't lead to human flourishing." So we need responsible adults, parents who provide informed adult guidance for our children. And if you're not doing that, then I still think children are better off reading everything they can get their hands on than they would be not, with or without guidance. However, like I said, I'm pretty unoffendable, and I'm older, so I've watched things change through the years, and I think it's for the best, but most of the time I think it's for the best. But I don't think it's reasonable to hold your children that close that you cannot allow them to step out and find their way. So that's what I'm going to say about that. Now I will leave it alone from here. The books that I've chosen, the first prompt is, which is not a tag, but it's a prompt, and that is to find a middle grade book with a name in the title. And this is the one that I did choose, that is from, it was written in 2023. It was written by a friend of mine. Her name is Maggie Wagner Malone, and the name of the book is a mystery, and it's called What Happened to Misty. And Unfinished Business is sort of the name of the whole series, but this is the first book in her series. I believe she's published the second book at this time, and it's available on Amazon. But What Happened to Misty, and sort of what this book is about, it's about, I'll read you what it says. It says, 13-year-old Pax Morningstar has been in the foster system since she was 6, when her parents died. After many failed tries, she's finally wound up in the perfect home. Her amazing foster moms welcome not only Pax, but her best friend and emotional support dog, Matilda. But Pax has a secret. For the past 2 years, after a visit from a ghost named Sophia, who offered her a way to work off some bad karma, Pax has been using her ability to see and communicate with ghosts to help earthbound spirits with their unfinished business so they can move on. Pax loves the job. For the first time, she feels like she matters, but being found out has already cost her 2 foster homes. So I read this book. I actually got to help edit this book, and it was a bunch of fun. But it's well written. It's a fun book to read. It is. I don't find it offensive. I found it realistic, even though it's about ghosts. And I found Pax to be a character with growth and with some good qualities, decent moral qualities, if that makes sense. So that is my number 1 that has a name in the title, and again, it's What Happened to Misty. So number 2 is a book with books on the cover. And this one, I had to search around for a while, but I did find one. There is a series of 29 books called Encyclopedia Brown Boy Detective, I think is what the general title is. And one of the 29 books by Donald J. Sobel is Encyclopedia Brown Finds the Clues. And the way that the Encyclopedia Brown books work is usually it's a series of stories. Sometimes it might be just one story, but it is Encyclopedia Brown, some kind of a mystery in his, at his school or during the summer, during some kind of an event, but some kind of a mystery occurs, and Encyclopedia Brown figures it out. He solves the mystery, and it tells you the solution to the mystery. No, it tells you the solution to the mystery, but not how Encyclopedia Brown arrived at his answer. And it's based on clues that you can read throughout the story, of course, and all of the explanations are at the end of the book. So I loved Encyclopedia Brown when I was a kid. If I could figure out a mystery, I was so excited. Does have a book on the cover. The other book that I found is from, I think it was published in 1988, and I think the language in it has been changed quite a bit since around 2022 because they have changed it, and that is actually I discovered that's called Bowdlerization, and that dates back into the 1800s when an individual came up with a book that he called the Family Shakespeare, which was all of Shakespeare's works made so that all members of the family could enjoy it. So it had taken out anything that would be considered offensive or objectionable or vulgar. And I think it was popular for a short period of time, but it didn't stand the test of time quite very well. But at any rate, the book that I have that has covers on the front is Matilda by Roald Dahl, and I loved the way that this review is written because it just says so much in just not too many words. It says, Matilda is an extraordinarily gifted 4-year-old whose parents are crass, dishonest. One is a used car dealer and self-centered, and then the other is a blowsy bingo addict. And they regard Matilda as if she has no merit at all. And her parents is bearable only because Matilda teaches herself to read. She finds the public library, she discovers literature, and Matilda loves using her lively intelligence to perpetrate daring acts of revenge on her father. This book, it says, this pastime develops further when she enrolls in Crensham Hall Primary School, whose head mistress, Miss Trunchbull, is a fierce, tyrannical monster. And then the caveat here is it says, adults may cringe at Dahl's excesses in describing the cruel Miss Trunchbull, as well as his reliance on overextended characterization at the expense of plot development. Children, however, with their keenly developed sense of justice, will relish the absolutes of stupidity, greed, evil, and what might versus intelligence, courage, and goodness. They will also sail happily through the contrived, implausible ending. Dahl's phenomenal popularity among children speaks for his breathless storytelling charm. His fans won't be disappointed by Matilda. And so I think that kind of speaks to the offensive nature of almost any literature. So you have to have some kind of a filter for that kind of thing. So anyway, that is a book that is has books on the cover. Both of those books do, Encyclopedia Brown and Matilda. And I've not read Matilda, but now I really want to. The third book is supposed to be something that has siblings as the main characters. And the book that I found was published in January of 1962. And there are actually 8 books in this series. The author is Jane Langton. And the name of the book is The Diamond in the Window. And the books are all about the Hall family. And I read this book as a child. I was mesmerized by it. It was one of the few books that is fantasy that I enjoyed so much. I found it so easy to fall into the story. So here is what The Diamond in the Window is about, quickly. A very unusual house. Eddie and Eleanor Hall have always known that their family was a bit out of the ordinary. After all, they live in one of the most remarkable houses in all of Concord. But they never guessed just how extraordinary their house really is, or what tremendous secrets about their family's past it holds. That is, until they discover the magical attic room with its beautiful stained glass window, abandoned toys, and 2 perfectly made up empty beds that seem to be waiting, perhaps for 2 children just like themselves. So what I remember about this story is there is a stained glass window in the attic, and there may have been engraving on the stone that is in the center, but it was a diamond, and that in some way they transport through it to this fantastic fantasy world, and they're able to go back and forth, and that's what I remember about it. And as I said, there are 8 of these books. I don't know anything about the other books, but this book is siblings that are the main characters in the story. So that's what I picked for that. That was The Diamond in the Window, published in 1962 by Jane Langton. Okay, and now for number 4, which was a historical book for children, for middle grade children. And the book that I chose was published in 1936. It was a Newbery Medal Award winner. And the version that I had as a child was illustrated, and I don't have it anymore. But like I said, it's been around since 1935. And that book is Caddy Woodlawn by Carol, and I'm not sure how to pronounce her middle name. The author is Carol Ryrie Brink. And this book, many people have read Caddy Woodlawn, and I believe it's still available. And again, I don't know if it's been censored in any way or if any of the wording has been changed. It definitely has some opinions about Native Americans that are not popular, and the terminology is incorrect. The terminology in it is definitely something that you might want to talk with your children about, but the story itself is just a lovely story. It's the first book that I think I ever read that made me cry. I was probably about 11 years old. But this is about, it says, Caddy Woodlawn is a real adventurer. She'd rather hunt than sow and plow. She'd rather hunt than sow and plow than bake, and she tries to beat her brother's dares every chance she gets. Caddy is friends with Indians who scare most of the neighbors who, like her mother and sisters, don't understand her at all. Caddy is brave, and her story is special because it's based on the life and memories of the author's grandmother, the real Caddy Woodlawn. Her spirit and sense of fun have made this book a classic that readers have taken to their hearts for more than 70 years. And I remember this book fairly well. I absolutely adored it. I don't remember talk of and again, I'm using terminology from the book, of Indians or savages or any of that as being something that was a big problem for me. I certainly didn't have, I wasn't afraid of the things that happened in the story, and I didn't feel like they were portrayed in a bad way. But I do understand that it is currently objectionable, and so Native American is the better term, obviously. And that's my dog agreeing with me, I believe. So that was Caddy Woodlawn. And as I said, it's the first book that ever made me cry, and it had to do with a dog. So I guess my dog agrees. The book that I chose for the BIPOC book is a book that was published in 1960. It was by Scott Odell, and it was The Island of the Blue Dolphins, which is a children's novel, and it tells the story of a girl named Kirana who is stranded alone for years on an island off the California coast. It's based on a true story of Juana Maria, a Nicoleño Native American left alone for 18 years on San Nicolas Island during the 19th century. And if I've mispronounced anything there, I apologize. But I do remember this book. It was read to us in the 4th grade. I remember the teacher who read it to us, and I remember sort of falling in. I felt like I was on the island. She was a very soft-spoken woman, and it was sort of ASMR. It was very mesmerizing and comforting to listen to her read this book, and I enjoyed it a lot. I don't remember all the details of it. I remember the feeling that it evoked, and it was a favorite. It's definitely an older story, so it may have some objectionable language, but it's good literature, and again, I don't know if it's been changed through the years to be more acceptable, but those are my 5 choices. So that's what I came up with, and I was very surprised. The topic turned out to be harder than I expected, because it's kids' books. I thought, well, how hard can that be? And I was such an avid reader as a child, and I started thinking about it. And like I said, I'm relatively I'm hard to offend. I don't assume that anyone's trying to be offensive to me, and that if they are, it's unintentional, and that is probably not correct some of the time, but that's the way I choose to live. So anyway, until I think the next thing will be my wrap up, and I've read a few books this week. It's been fun. So I'll have a few things to talk about, but until the next time, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, be kind to the planet, and be blessed. Y'all have a good day. Bye-bye.